Good morning, Matt.
Morning, Rick. How you doing, my man?
Good, buddy. It's a Monday morning here. Did you have a good weekend?
Absolutely.
Did you take the kids to the pool?
We live at the pool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Live at the pool, the lake. Gotta do it.
Sounds tough. I didn't know you went to the
tough
lake.
life.
Do you live on the lake?
Yeah, I live, Lake Lanier area.
Okay.
Yeah,
Very
right
cool.
up there. So got a lot of friends with boats, and which the lake is bananas. It's
That's
always
the best
crazy.
way to own a boat, from what I understand, is to have a
Have
friend that
somebody
owns
from
a
a boat,
boat.
absolutely.
Yeah. Best and worst day of your
buying a
boat
boat
ownership,
and
buying
selling
it
a
and
boat.
selling it, right? The day you bought it, the day you sold it.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, if you like boats, no offense, that's just something I've heard from others that do. Take it from a non-boat owner.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like your motorcycle.
Nah, man, that's totally different. Like I couldn't do without it.
It's just like them. They can't do without it. Lake life. It's water people do.
Hashtag lake life.
I got some buddies that listen to this. They're on the water every day. You gotta be nice about got the boat.
Well, no, I'm not knocking it. Like, it's any hobby, right? And it is true for some people. You see these motorcycles for sale online, and they've got they're 8 years old and they have 1,000 miles on them, where it just looks like something cool to do, and then it just wasn't your thing.
Yeah.
So you just sell it for pennies on the dollar. I love those guys, by the way, because I
go
can
get all
swoop
their
in and
stuff.
scoop them up.
Yeah,
That's right.
absolutely.
I can buy all their stuff for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, listen, we're going to talk today about something a little more tactical, because in this post-COVID environment, a lot of people are understanding that the large group training model for studios is probably not the way to go.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's just public perception, right? Just to cram a lot of people in a small space is not a really good idea right now. And so a lot of people are leaning into what we call small group personal training. Now, that term is somewhat interchangeable with team training in some settings, and team training meaning 20 people getting sweaty. But the key is the word personal training.
Right.
So we'll talk about it today through the lens of the Alloy Personal Training franchise. And we've run it a couple of different ways, but we feel like the way that we're servicing it right now is the most efficient, most cost effective, not only for the business, but also for the clients. And a lot of the problem solving around pivoting to this model is, how do you staff it?
Right.
What does your team structure look like, and what are the roles and responsibilities of those people on the team? And it's pretty simple, but I think we will walk people through it today so they could have an idea of what owning a small group personal training studio would look like. Mm-hmm. Maybe if you already own a boot camp style business and you're looking to transition, this could be helpful. Or if you're looking to get into the fitness business, this would be the relevant model moving forward that you need to look at. And we'll describe how we do it, at the Alloy franchise level.
Awesome.
Go from there. And of course, we're sitting on the model right here. And so we have a lot of experience running it and know exactly what the roles and responsibilities of everybody should look like.
Yeah. So what position you want to start with?
We'll start with the head honcho, the big cheese. We'll start with there's two terms that we use for this position. One would be general manager. Mm-hmm. But what I like better, and I think that we're going to pivot back to, is director of training.
Yeah.
Now, the responsibilities for this person are essentially all the metrics of the business. Mm-hmm. So they are driving revenue, which means they are closing sales.
Yep.
Asking for referrals, so somewhat involved in the marketing as well. They are certainly driving retention, right? So they're meeting with people periodically. And they're also managing the team. And they're, making sure that based on the feedback they get, the intimate feedback from clients, that those changes happen with the team, or that they get relevant feedback and they get coaching on how to move forward. So when I said we have two interchangeable terms, general manager or director of training, I think the reason that I like director of training is because I look at it as everyone should, the business through the lens of the consumer or the customer or the client. If I'm coming to a place to work out, I don't want to meet with a manager, right?
Right, yeah.
This is like a Karen thing, right? I need to speak to your manager. It's like, I don't want a manager. That just sounds like it's a top heavy structure. I want to meet with the person who is the one who directs all of the training, because that tells me I'm meeting with a coach. And the real role of this person, right? It's very pivotal, is that they are, in other words, the head coach for the whole gym.
Yeah, they are the face, the guy.
They're the face of the business. They're the glue that holds everything together. And they're the ones that have the first contact as far as peeling the onion and getting to know the client very well.
Yep.
And laying out, in Rodney, our new director of training's terms, laying out that roadmap for someone from where they are to where they're going to be, how they're going to be successful, getting them set up on the app so that we can track all their habit changes and things, making sure they get scheduled for all their sessions. That's the one that also, if they need to, or they're discussing membership prices or changes in that, right? And then they're meeting with them ongoing. So when they set these goals, they are meeting with them periodically over time. So I think that role is much better described as director of training than general manager. Do you agree?
Mean, they are the expert of experts, you should say. I mean, the people, if you do it the right way, they meet with them, they teach them, everything they know, why they're doing this in their training, nutrition. Clients will come back to this person forever. And I mean, just even from my own experience, I don't even sit in that chair anymore, and I still have clients that come see me. That's how impactful this person is.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I had forgotten, like before we entered this conversation, that you were in that seat off and on for several
Been
years.
Here a long time.
Yeah, that's true. I've done everything here. You really have. But you're right. That does still happen. So for those of you guys that don't know, our corporate office is attached to our gym, and we have glass doors that separate them, and our office doors are glass as well. So it's not hard to look from the gym side all the way through to see who's on the office side. And I do see a lot of people, they come through the glass doors, they come over, they go into Matt's office, and they end up talking about fitness goals or membership or whatever. And the reason that they do that was because you made that initial contact with them. You're the one that they finally expressed these goals that they had. You're the one that held them accountable to those goals. They talked about membership prices with you. I mean, all those things. And so it's funny, they still come back to you for that. But that's just a great way to say that it's a super impactful position.
It is.
In the business. I mean, you're the head coach for the whole business. You're the face of it. You're the person that everyone comes to, whether it's new goals or anything that's going on. And I would say, even if you're in a different business model, it's probably the most important position in all of fitness, because you're the one that has to convince someone that you are the solution for them, that you can help them. So it helps build the business, but it also helps convince people that to move, right? And to take action on their fitness goals. And so I can't imagine a more impactful position.
Well, I mean, don't be confused. I mean, this person does sales, but it's so much more than that, right? It's just not our salesperson, get them in, get them out. That's not what we're talking about here. This person, like you're saying, is literally with them step by step through a process. And it works in our system because we all say the same things, do the same things. It's a systemized play. Not really sure how it would work if you're all got Wild Wild West and trainers doing whatever they want. Probably wouldn't be the...
Yeah, and that's a point that I didn't make, which is the way to really run this model is to control all the aspects of it, meaning the gym controls the programming, the gym controls the sales process, and all of those things. So when you plug this athlete, if you will, hire the athlete, train the skill. When you plug the right athlete into the system, they just have to run the play, and they just have to hold the team and everyone else accountable to running the same play. So it's not you don't need to put someone in there who is necessarily a baller salesperson. And it sounds counterintuitive because sales is one of the number one roles. Like, you have to close. Like, not only do you have to close the deals or convince people that you're the solution for them, which is closing a sale. Right. You also have to convince them, and a lot of times, like a lead that puts their hand up, a digital lead, you have to get on the phone. You have to talk to them about their goals then. It starts from that very first interaction, and that director is responsible for getting them all the way into the gym and then closing sales. So it is a unique position in the sense that it's service-based, and when you're looking for the athlete for this position, you really want someone who is somebody who can pull those things out, like a true coach at heart, but who also has enough business acumen to understand business metrics, because this person is held accountable to, leads. Maybe that's a combination of the owner, which would be me, and the manager. So it's leads to book, book to show, and show to close. Once the lead is made, then it's the responsibility of the general manager, director of training in this case, to get those leads in to close them out. And then more importantly, and certainly in a small group training model, that retention is our key to growth, because that groundswell can't happen if you have a hole in the dike, right? Well, that director becomes super pivotal at meeting with people ongoing. So let's just describe the role formally, to do starting point sessions, which is the sales session, to get people in, and then to take them through the starting point and convince them that we have the solution that will help them reach their goals. Check. Next, on the retention side, we do something called accountability sessions. Ideally, those are happening once a month. Early on, they're happening twice a month, maybe even more often, depending on the goal.
First 90 days, most pivotal.
It is. That's the time to nail those habits, and you have to get some success, right? We talked, I think, Matt, you and I talked about motivation, and how motivation works is the work always comes before the motivation. It's not the other way around. So you're not going to sit down with this person who's going to motivate you. They're going to lay out a plan of attack, and they're going to hold you accountable to it. You're going to work really hard in that 90 days. Once you start to see some positive results, then the self-efficacy and the motivation comes after. Mm-hmm. But this person's pivotal in telling you what to do, laying out that roadmap, and then holding you accountable to that roadmap. And so those meetings that happen more often at start are really key, because by 90 days, you should have seen some positive result, which means you've built that self-efficacy, and now you have this air quotes motivation, if you will, and you're moving forward. So that's the two main roles. Yep. So you could just say sales and retention, and then management of staff. And that's more about clear communication. So one way that we make sure that we're on track with all of our processes is we have something called the 7 core tenets, which you guys can go back and look that up. It was one of our podcasts that we did. Well, those 7 core tenets allow us to measure, like if retention is something that's not on par, like if that metric is off a little bit, we can go back to the 7 core tenets, and we do it all the time anyway, where we just want to make sure that we're hitting all those things and relevantly. So it's very simple to create your own core tenets and then simply come up with a questionnaire that asks questions around those things that you want to be done. And then we can hand those out, and it's sort of secret shopper, right? So the client knows that it's anonymous, but we give this form to them and say, hey, did these things happen during your session, right? And it's things like, were you greeted by name within so many seconds of entering the facility? Was the exercise explained to you, right? Did you receive were you complimented for a win during the workout? Were you asked when you're scheduled again? All these little things, but it's the director's job to issue those to clients, to explain that it's, completely anonymous, that we really value their feedback, and we're trying to provide the best service possible, to collect that data and then be able to present it back to the team. Yep. And so there is a little management, even though I don't like the term general manager for this person, because the main role is coaching and taking care of people. There is a little bit of management, but most of the management is very easy, because it all boils down to the premise that we believe in, which is we all only have one boss, and that one boss is our client. Yep. And so if we're getting feedback that says, hey, a large percentage of the time, we're not saying thank you when people leave the facility. They're not hearing that. Okay, so that's a metric that we can improve. Or let's say, most of the team is hitting, and there's just 1 or 2 people that are not hitting, right? Well, then instead of addressing it instead of not having the hard conversation and going straight to the person, having a conversation with the whole team, no, this director can then go to this coach and say, hey, and it's just based on data, right? It's nothing personal. It's just like, hey, you're only doing this particular function, and it's only you, and you're only doing it 40% of the time. So we really need to up our game there. And there's not a lot you can say to that. This is feedback from customers. They're telling you the truth. And so it's not like it's top-down heavy management, but someone's got to measure it, and someone's got to at least report the information. Right. And then if that person doesn't improve, we'll have to take action on that. But so that's really the most important role in this, is the director of training. Now, if you are an owner-operator of your own facility, because there's a lot of people listening that do own their own facilities, and there's a lot, and we have a franchise set up where you can just be an investor and never be there, right? Which is appealing to some, and you have others that they want to be there because they love the business that they're in, and they maybe don't want to scale beyond one facility, and they're going to go work there. Well, great. Then if you were the owner, that's the seat that you would sit in, because it's the most impactful seat. And of course, then you would not have the burden of that salary, right? You would take that in yourself. So that's the 2 basic models, and essentially the 2 types of customers that we have as a franchise: owner-operators or investors, right? Yep. But the key is, or the point is, that key position has to be there, and it's the most important role in the whole facility. Yeah. Now, if you had multiple facilities, you should have a director at each facility. So maybe you have, let's say you're an investor and you've got 5 clubs. You have a regional manager who keeps all the directors of training, accountable, and then they keep their team accountable. Yep. And we go from there. And obviously, lead production is sort of an overall company approach, right? Whether it be digital, referrals, those type of things. So that's the first position. Yep. Is director of training. The second position, and it's really important also, is we call it front desk, which is just sort of a slang term. I think the description on the business card is director of customer experience.
Yep.
Well, the reason that we put that on there, which sounds like one of those like new age goofy terms, is because that person is quite often the first contact that someone has when they walk into the facility. And if your desk is positioned near the front of the facility, which most people are,
it would be.
Exactly. This person is, the first smiling face that they'll see. So this is really a huge case or a huge sort of enforcement of the idea that you have to hire the athlete and then train the skill. You have to put someone at that front desk that can wear a smile all day, that is super pleasant, that has no problem learning names and using them regularly, right? And understands that the most important thing at any given moment is that warm body standing right in front of them.
Yep.
Why do you have a smile on your face?
I just thinking about our front desks, they're awesome. Because they get, that's just the place where all the clients go, and there's a million and one different conversations.
Right. And you think about the dance between like the first contact and the director of training, right? The other position we just talked about. So you may have someone that comes to the desk after a workout and they're like, hey, listen, with this COVID thing, I'm really nervous. I'm not sure what to do. I think I'm gonna put my membership on hold. And maybe the desk understands deeper what the other options are that we have. And while they may not be the person to say, no, wait a minute, let me describe our online, or virtual training option for you. That's what most people are doing. They would say something like, all right, great. Well, let me do this. I'll notate what you said. I hate to hear that that's what you're thinking, but let me get you over to Rodney, right? And our director of training, because again, it's that opportunity to get in there with this person who can then have again, another point that we didn't make, we're doing these meetings in a private office. This can't just be done at the front desk, right? Because people are going to talk about their personal challenges and their goals and things that are a bit more intimate. And by the way, that's what makes it personal training. So the desk, there's a dance between the desk and the director about, hey, I talked to so-and-so, here's what she said, blah, blah, blah. And the director will say, well, make sure you get her on my schedule. I've got some times open tomorrow. Go ahead and book her and I'll meet with her then.
Yep.
And so there's got to be clear communication between these two roles. They support each other in a lot of ways, right?
Yep.
So the director of customer experience is the first contact, and they're the last smiling face that people see when they leave the club. So it's got to be a greeting by name when they walk in. Doesn't matter even if you're doing paperwork or whatever. If you're not on the phone, you need to be looking up, right?
Yep.
And then they also need to be saying thank you on the way out. And so they need to be cognizant of the traffic flow in and out. And it's pretty easy to do that. Like you can coach your this position to do things that are more task oriented during the middle of the hour when all the clients are buried in a session. I mean, it's common sense. When do you think you're going to have the most traffic flow? At the end of one session and the beginning of another. That's a good time to put all of your tasks, whether you're pecking away on the computer, aside and focus on the people that are coming in and out of the club, right? So a very pivotal position and face of the club in a lot of ways, right? I know you said the director is, but in a lot of ways, this person is literally the face of the club. And then, what else do they do? It's like any support admin. They can pull reporting. They should know how to use your CRM. We use MindBody. They should know how to use MindBody.
Reports, phone
calls. They need to have scripts for phone calls. If someone calls in and says, hey, I saw your sign on the road outside, tell me what you guys do. We need to know how to handle that call. And obviously our goal is always to get them to the starting point session.
Right. Yeah.
So book the starting point and get them in the gym, right? That's our number one goal. And so phone scripts, if somebody walks in, right, and the director is tied up with someone else, then this person has to take them on a tour. And the whole their end game is always book the starting point, always, right? So it is a position that it's so much more than just quote unquote front desk, because there's a lot of moving parts to it. They have to look the part. They have to be very energetic, upbeat, very customer centric, focused. And they also have to understand systems and be able to run scripts on phone and whatever. I mean, we're very, upfront with those positions in our club. We would tell, like, we've got someone that's new to ours and she's doing a great job. Her name's Hannah. And I would have no bones and have had these conversations with Hannah about, listen, there's times when our leads are $100 a piece in this market, right? A digital lead. So let's just say someone picks up the phone and calls. You could assume that that's worth $100. So if you don't answer the phone because you're in the back, folding towels and you just forgot to bring the phone with you, you might as well put $100 bill in the dryer and just burn it up, because that's basically what we're doing, because they're probably not going to leave a message. And if they do, they're not going to be around. They might move on to the next thing that pops up on their Google search, So it is a very important position.
It is, yeah. I mean, it's that first impression with those new leads that walk in the door. So you got to train them.
Yeah, and you train them on things like, hey, we have a new lead coming in at 10 a.m. Well, when that person walks in, if they haven't met them before and they walk in and they have that look like, hey, I'm here for the first time, how much more impactful would it be if the person at the desk is like, are you Matt? Oh, welcome. Great to meet you. It's like, wow, they were waiting on me. Those things are very easy to coach.
Yeah.
But it has to be a person who understands why that's important, because otherwise they'll, you don't want someone who used to work at the front desk of like a law firm when all they do is answer the phone and they can't just hide and get away from people. They have to be very customer centric. We've had people that managed like a Brewster's and then came here and were amazing, right? And so it's just got to be someone who understands the dance of the customer facing.
Definitely don't undervalue it. I mean, it is, like I said, say the face for sure. They're very, very important.
Yep, exactly. And then lastly, and that's why I love this model, is because it's so simple, it's just coaches.
Mm-hmm.
And so the coaches in a model, so we'll just break down ours. In a model like ours, where a good, healthy gym with good margins, making good money, can be between 250 and 300 clients.
Yep.
You at full tilt. So if you are at 300 clients, you can get away in our model with 3.5 coaches. And when I say that, I mean 3 full-time and 2 part-time. Or I'm sorry, 3 full-time, 1 part-time, right? And that's just to cover the shifts. So again, we're in the burbs, so this might not speak to you if you're in an urban environment, but we don't have much going on in the middle of the day.
Right.
So we aren't open for sessions in the middle of the day. We could certainly open that up, but as we do that, that means there's more expense, right? Any kind of growth, opening up a schedule has an expense to it. And so we feel like in the market that we're in, based on 28 years of experience in the burbs, that we're open during the morning hours. So we're open from 6 a.m. till noon.
Yep.
If you were outside of New York City, you might need to open at 4:30 or 5 because people have come in early because they have to get to work, right? And then we're not open in the middle of the day because we don't have a lot of industry around us that's coming in for lunch breaks. If you were, you would need to be open then as well. And then we reopen again in the afternoon. We start at 4 and we're open until 8 o'clock at night.
Yep.
Close a little bit early on Fridays because it's not much of a huge, we're in the burbs, so there's not a huge Friday night crowd.
Everybody's hitting happy hour.
Yep. And then we're only, exactly. And then we're open Saturday morning and where you go from 7 to noon. Now we can easily accommodate 300 people with that structure I just gave you. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 6 to noon.
Yep.
4 to 8 at night. And then Saturday mornings. Now, could we open Sunday morning? Sure. If there was a need, there'd be a bigger expense to that as well. And in some markets, again, that's your choice. But I'm telling you that with 300 customers, you need 3.5 coaches, right?
Just from a coaching standpoint, how appealing is that? Just go and literally work from their shifts. They start 30 minutes before and after. 5:30 in the morning to 12:30 and you're done.
Yeah. And you're paid for 30 minutes before because we have things that happen. Like you have like a morning huddle and you look at the clients that are coming in. And again, that's part of those core tenets and how to run an effective session is you get there early and you look at who's new, who's hitting. We have milestones, right? For certain workouts, we're looking at milestones. So you're preparing for your session and you should be paid for that time.
Yeah.
So the actual paid shift is 5:30, 12:30. But how
many places give you a straight shift like that? You remember the training grind. You're there early, middle of the day, afternoon, late. that's just how it goes.
Yeah. I remember getting to the gym at 5:30 and then your 6 o'clock would cancel. So then you would maybe sneak in a little workout and you start at 7 and and you maybe go to like 10 or 11 and then you had somebody who couldn't work out at the 11 o'clock time. So they moved to 2 in the afternoon. Can you do that? And you would go and take a quick nap or try to eat something out of a cooler and then you do 2 and then you come back at night and have 2 more. So you've worked like 14 hours and you've done 6 or 7 hours of training, right? So
I'm making $3 an hour.
Right. Well, exactly. Yeah. When you really look at the time, it's like travel time and everything else. So when you look at having a set shift, I would say it's a massive advantage. So it's a nice business model for coaches because we can then afford to hire someone on to a set shift and we can pay them a salary.
Right.
So here's your salary, and guess what a salary comes with in our model? Well, if you so choose, you can do benefits and pay time off, and it's like a real. That sounds like a joke, but like a real job, right? Like
got a real job.
You got a real. Yeah, remember that when you tell somebody, a trainer, like, what do you do for your day job? Yeah. What else do you do?
This is it, man.
How's your mom's basement treating you? That just seems to be the perception, but. We've had a lot of people come here and that's still one of the stigmas around it where they're like, I run a career. Can I make a career in fitness? I'm like, yeah, if you want to make, 50 to 60K and work in this environment and go home at 12:30 every day and have a playbook written for you, you just have to go out there and be enthusiastic and do this 7 core tenets, right? So what's the responsibility of the coaches? Well, you got to run the play, that first and foremost. And same thing, you've got to be very customer oriented, and making people happy. This is a big one as well, where we would say, listen, hire the right athlete and then train the skill. And that's been proven time and time again in our systematic approach, that we can hire someone who's just really good with people, might not be the most technical coach in the world. We can teach technique and the things that we do because we're controlling the programming. So it's very easy to teach that. So I don't need a ninja who thinks they can program. It's like, listen, we're doing this for a reason.
Right.
All the programming is written so that it's very technical, but it's filtered in a way that makes it digestible and deliverable by...
Well, let's be honest. I don't think there's anybody out there that could really train 36 people in a shift and write all their own programming. And I mean,
yeah, imagine what that Sunday afternoon would look like if you're writing new programs every week. Right?
Yeah, get over it.
Right, exactly. And so it's a really nice model for coaches, and it works for the business because it's a systematic approach. We own it. We own the sales process. We own the induction. We own the leveling process from how they get to the door to the workout. And then we own the actual workout itself. And a lot of the workout is written for not just the rules that we've talked about in previous podcasts, push, pull, hip, knee, all those things. Right. All the science is in there, but the workout is also written for the customer experience, right?
Yeah.
And we do it in a lot of ways based on how coaches have to coach it. And we take that into account. So it's like, all right, well, this is kind of hard to coach. So we'll change it to this, which gives us the same benefit, but it's just simpler to get from zero to good form, that type of thing.
Well, systemizing a way that it is, it's so nice to, you have that client that comes in, they see the director of training or GM, and how often do you ever get that question, like, am I training with you? Right. But what they actually, you get to say is like, look, we go over all the programs. We all coach the same way, do the same things. Everything that I see, I will give to the coaches and they will make sure you're good. So I'm in charge over here. These guys will run it, and it just puts them at ease. And then they know every time they're coming in, they're going to get that, no matter what coach they have.
Well, and just like we talked about the communication between the director of training and the customer experience manager, it's the same thing when it's the communication between the director of training and the coaches, right? Yep. So imagine having, I guess the best way to put this would be a group of people working to service another group of people. That's what it should feel like. It should feel like you're out there, you're training 6 people at a time, and somebody says, my hip's been bothering me, right? Well, certainly you can have a quick discussion around it. But if they're like, what if they said this? Here's a great example. My knee's been bothering me. It happens a lot. I mean, we're training people. It's a little bit more expensive than a boot camp model. So we're training people that are financially maybe better off. And so they're going to be a little longer in the tooth. And so if you're 45 years old and you've been active your whole life, you're going to have a few chinks in your armor. So someone says, hey, my knee hurts. I'm going to see my orthopedist, next week. What should I tell them? That's a great time because you don't really have the time on the floor to have a lengthy discussion. Mm-hmm. Say, let me do this. I'm going to set you up with a time with Rodney, right? I'm going to set you up with our director, Bill, whoever that may be, Susie. And they're going to talk to you about, what to expect when you go see the doctor and maybe how to filter the information. Because as you and I know, what can happen is people can go to the doctor who doesn't have a lot of experience or background in exercise.
Quit working out.
Right. I need you to stop work. Don't ever squat again. And of course they say that because in their minds, squats mean heavy barbell squats all the way to the floor. Yeah. Egregiously bad things. But we know if you can't squat, you're going to have a hard time getting in and out of your car or sitting in a chair. So, in the air quotes functional training realm, squats are a lot of things. So you can't just blanketly say no squats. You can do limited range. You can do box squat. I mean, there's so many things you can do.
And that's accountability sessions.
That's where it happens. So here's one of the examples of how this magic happens. The person comes in, you go, okay, listen, here's what's going to happen. You're going to go to the doctor. Keep in mind, they might say blank, 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 right? But keep in mind, they may not know a lot about what we do here or exercise. And they may have seen a lot of people that were injured by bad personal trainers or whatever. So just keep that in mind. So people go see the doctor, they get that information, and you should set an appointment to see them afterwards, right? Yep. So they come in afterwards. What'd the doctor say? Yep, you're right. He said, don't ever squat again. It's like, okay, great. Well, here's what they really mean. Here's what we're going to do to work around it. And you show them, hey, here's the app. I'm going to put this in. Every coach that picks up the app and populates their schedule is going to know exactly what you need to do and working around it. And then when they leave, the director goes to the coaches and says, hey, so-and-so came in, she met with the doctor. As you know, they always say no squats, so no squatting. So here's what we're going to do with her. Just make sure this happens. It'll be in the notes. And like, all right, cool. Or it's one of those things where if there's a lot of familiarity between coaches and clients, which happens, we proudly claim that our clients can work with any coach. But the fact is, if you have a coach on a shift and a client has the same schedule every week, a lot of times they end up on the same coach's schedule. Well, if you've told that client 18 times that they need to drink more water or eat less sweets or whatever that is that are based on their goals, there's just so much familiarity that you probably you can't tell them anymore, and you feel like they don't listen or whatever. So when they go to do an accountability session, it's always fun for the coach to run around behind the scenes and be like, would you please tell them this? And I used an analogy of me to my kids, right? Like if my kids were going to see you about exercise, I could come to you and be like, they're not listening to me. Here's what they need to do. Can you just talk to them about that? And you'd be like, sure. And then when you tell them, because you're not their parent, they're like, wow, Matt's so smart, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's a very similar situation here. So what you have is you understand that dynamic, and you have this relationship between the coaches and the director where they can combine efforts to get people to move forward.
Right.
And then there's a confidence, right? There's a confidence that builds on the team when that's working in harmony, where the client comes back and they're like, oh, I met with Rodney. It was great. He talked to me, and we've got a roadmap now for my goals, and we're going to be holding me accountable. And the coach is just like,
yeah.
And they knew the whole, but they're so excited. So then they'll go back to Rodney and say, hey, great job. Right. You got her straightened out. She's so happy now. And that's a win-win for everyone, right? And so it should be this harmony between these positions. Like you've got the director, who's sort of the head honcho, the lead coach, if you will, for the whole club, even though they're not doing a whole lot of training. You've got the coaches implementing the programs and understanding what those other roles are as well. And then you've got front desk, who's like the face of the place, literally, because they're sitting at the front. But they're all working in concert with each other.
Right.
Again, what is it, ladies and gentlemen, servicing ladies and gentlemen, right? From the Ritz-Carlton playbook. That's what it should feel like. So it should all be working. But all that being said, Matt, when you look at that, it's a very simple model.
Yep.
I mean, you have a director of training, which you can sit in that seat or someone else can. You've got an admin help, which is really customer facing. So it's really more customer experience manager. And then you have coaches. Right. That's it. That's what I love about this model, is it's very, very simple. And then once that's built and it's simple and you understand it, and the programming is controlled and the sales process is controlled, it just becomes about the relentless pursuit of doing the small things well over time. And those small things, the sum of those, are what makes a great personal training business, right? Not necessarily the workouts or this or that or the smoke and mirrors that you may see. It's that. But I love it for its simplicity. And those are the roles and relationships, in the model.
It's the magic.
Makes sense?
Yeah, man. It's awesome.
All right, guys. I hope that helps if you guys are transitioning to this. And if it's something you're thinking about and you don't own one, hit us up. Go to alloyfranchise.com. And if you like the podcast, give us a positive review. Give us a shout out. Copy, paste, say hello, wave a little bit. I get good feedback from you guys, but it's usually on direct messaging. So make it public, would you? Come on. All right. Appreciate you guys. We'll talk to you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.